Now that we've brought the idea of distance into our theory, the plan is to mix in these distance symbols with combos we know well, like the 1-2, to make them really work for us. This combo, the 1-2, is what beginners practice a lot. What distance are you supposed to be at when you do this 1-2 combo? So, when you're starting off with a 1-2 at tonic distance, where you need to step in for the jab to land, the move shown in the sheet here won't really hit your opponent well. That's why it's a good idea to step forward when you throw that first jab. This sheet shows you stepping forward at the same time as you throw the first jab, putting you into subdominant distance. So, the straight punch you throw right after that will be close enough to your opponent to actually land as a hit. But keep in mind, all this talk assumes that your opponent isn't moving. In a real match, both you and your opponent are always shifting to get to a distance that works for you, and your opponent's also looking for chances to strike. Sometimes, even if you don't move, just your opponent stepping forward can put you in subdominant distance, which is close enough for them to really get in there and land some shots. If both fighters step forward at the same time, the space between them can change fast to what we call the dominant distance. That's where the action is more up close and happens right away. On the flip side, if your opponent figures out you're about to jab and step forward, and they step back at the same time, then the distance between you two doesn't change. So, you're still at what we call the tonic distance. Alright, next, let's think about a situation where you're doing a 1-2 combo while you're at subdominant distance. If you and your opponent can punch about the same distance, then a 1-2 at this range works well for both of you. Basically, throwing a straight up 1-2 like this means you're going toe-to-toe with your opponent. When you're at dominant distance, there's not enough room for a straight punch to really stretch out and hit as hard as it can. So, using a jab, which isn't as powerful, doesn't make much sense tactically in this close-up situation. That's why going for a 1-2 combo here isn't really the best move. Given what we've talked about, it's pretty clear that 1-2 combos are usually started from tonic distance. The usual game plan is to land a right straight while you're moving into subdominant distance at the same time.
In boxing, when you throw a bunch of punches one after the other in a combo, it's all about slowing down how fast your opponent can react. This helps make sure your punches land. But remember, not every punch in a combo is meant to actually hit the opponent. In the sheet boxing, a hat symbol can be used to show which punches are meant to land, and which ones are just setting up for the next move. In that 1-2 combo we talked about, if you do it really well, your first jab might slip past your opponent's glove, because they didn't react quick enough, but the punch you really want to hit with is the straight right. So, you should put a hat symbol above the right, straight in the sheet to show that's the main punch you're aiming for.
We're going to take a look at what the 1-2 hook means tactically. It's a combo that you often see used in mitt training. In a basic 1-2, what you usually do is move in from tonic distance and try to hit with a straight right. But if your opponent steps back when you finish your right straight, you're back to tonic distance. In that case, throwing a hook probably won't work because at tonic distance, it's really only a step-in jab that's going to be effective. So, this tells us that when you're doing a 1-2 hook combo, it's not really taking into account the chance that your opponent might step back. So, if you're often practicing short hooks right after a 1-2 without stepping in, it kind of implies a different starting point. This kind of thing happens when your opponent sees your jab coming and then moves forward, dodging your straight right. To show what your opponent is doing, using a duet format in the sheet boxing really helps make this clear, just like in this example.
When you are doing the mid training, your trainer usually moves the mid closer to you so that your hook hits it. But when you think about the right combination for beginners, It's worth questioning if it's really important to learn how to deal with an opponent who ducks under your right straight and then steps in.
In actual boxing matches, each fighter moves differently because of things like how strong they are, how fast they move, their technique, how far they can reach, and how big their steps are. But when we're looking at boxing from a tactical point of view, we start off by thinking that all fighters are pretty much the same in terms of their physical abilities and how they move. We call these standard movements. This way of looking at things helps us focus just on the tactics, since we're not worried about differences in physical conditions. Once we've got a handle on tactics with these standard movements, we can start thinking about what to do in different situations. Like if you're up against someone who has more power or has a longer reach.